Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. Hearthstone Grandmasters has started, the top level of Hearthstone esports, with 16 players playing in Asia Pacific, 16 in Europe and 16 in Americas, playing in an 8-week long league against each other within their own region. And now it's week 1, the games are going on actually right now on Play Hearthstone Twitch channel if you want to tune in for some of those games. And I took a look at the meta game a little bit and I intend to keep watching it week after week, so what is the direction of the Grandmasters meta? Grandmasters is being played in Specialist format, so Specialist is a format where you bring one class and you bring 3 decks. And the primary deck is what you always start the game with. All the games are best of 3, so for 2 wins. And then you have a secondary and a tertiary deck, and those can differ from your primary deck by up to 5 cards. And you can switch between these decks between your games. But you have to start each match with your primary deck. So no more bans, no more multi-class lineups. And this format, the meta for these 48 players, looks like this. Warrior is the most popular class, followed by Rogue, followed by Mage, and then there's a couple of Hunters and a single Priest. No Warlocks, no Paladins, no Druids, and no Shaman. There are some changes between the regions though, because Warrior, while it's clearly the most popular class in both Europe and in Americas, it's actually not that common in Asia Pacific, where Rogue is far more common. Asia Pacific only has 3 classes, there's Rogues, Mages and Warriors. Americas has Rogue, Mages and Warriors and a Hunter, and Europe has 5 classes with a couple of Hunters, a Priest, a couple of Rogues, a few Mages and a bunch of Warriors. On Archetype level we have 8 archetypes represented over these 5 classes. As you can see from the table, Bomb Warrior is the most popular archetype, 22 players overall bringing Bomb Warrior, 12 players are bringing Tempo Rogue, 6 players with Cyclone Mage, 2 with the dragon-based, a little bit slower Conjurer Mage, 2 Midrange Hunters, 2 Control Warriors, 1 Bomb Hunter and 1 Nomi Priest. So that is the starting point. Players can switch their decks between weeks, so we'll see what is going to be the response to this meta for next week. I usually want to feature a number of decks from tournaments, especially decks that are ready to be brought to ladder. But the more I look into it, the more specialist formats makes that difficult. Specialist decks typically simply are not quite ladder decks. Of course, the classes, the archetypes themselves are so strong that even if the deck is teched a little bit against something, it might still prove to be decent, at least on ladder. But in a meta like this, player has 3 decks, so they have a deck that tries to beat Warrior, deck that tries to beat Mage, deck that tries to beat Rogue. And you can't be that one-sided when you're playing on ladder. You need to be a little bit more well-rounded, like what Conquest format decks used to have to be. To illustrate this point, here are a couple of Purple's list. Purple's primary deck. Purple's primary deck is a Bomb Warrior. It's a little bit of a curious Bomb Warrior, because you would never take a Bomb Warrior with just 1 Wrench Caliber to the ladder, for example. Wrench Caliber is just an insanely good card. But when you're building a specialist lineup and you're allowed to change 5 cards, then you sometimes have to make some compromises in order to be able to fit in the various text cards you want to put in to your secondary and tertiary deck. And indeed, here, Purple's tertiary deck, in turn, it cuts the Wrench Caliber, it cuts the Clockwork Goblin. It's not a Bomb Warrior at all anymore. It's actually a pretty defensive Control Warrior, but not one that can go infinite. But it's a Control Warrior that targets Mage. This really targets Mage. 2 Executes, 2 Big Game Hunters, 2 Super Colliders. So the 5 cards that have been added are the Super Colliders, the Big Game Hunters and 1 of the Executes. This deck does everything it can to kill boards of Mountain Giants. And it might do very well against Mage, but would this be a deck that you would take to the ladder? Well, no, it wouldn't. It would not have the toolkit to challenge many other things. So in this way, it's really difficult to recommend these specialist tournament decks as ladder builds. There's always been some reservations about recommending Conquest format tournament builds as ladder builds also, because there are some Conquest format lineups that are simply targeting something very heavily. But overall the Conquest format decks have been more well-rounded, and they have been closer to what you're playing on ladder than what these specialist decks for the most part turn out to be. But I do want to point out one possible exception. Well, I really like the look of this midrange hunter build from BoarControl. This features some of the latest innovations in ladder midrange hunter, which is that you don't have to play a secret hunter in order to put in 2 copies of Rat Trap just so that you can beat rogues. Because Rat Trap is a really annoying card to play against as rogue, and it's actually really strong overall in the current meta. There are right now lots of decks on the ladder that want to play 3 cards in a turn, and Rat Trap punishes them heavily for doing that. The deck also runs 2 copies of Vicious Scalehide, 2 copies of Dire Frenzy, so the healing combo is there. There's a Strangleton Tiger, so you can get that stealth minion up on the board, and you can Dire Frenzy that, you can get a stealth Dire Frenzy combo. There's 2 copies of Deadly Shot to kill off Edwins, to kill off Mountain Giants, and of course there's Julzin at the end. So Midrange Hunter is one archetype that has been tuned and tuned during the course of this expansion. It started out doing not very well, but it has slowly been gaining popularity, and it has slowly been gaining strength. And this list that BoarControl is bringing to Grandmasters is a very nice specimen of that. I will be following the development of the Grandmasters meta every week, so remember to tune in to my channel to see what the pros are bringing. And I will try to find something that's ladder viable as well from among the deck lists. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.